First tonight on Our News Weekend, a family is mourning the loss of a loved one after a black Honda Fit and the body of a woman was discovered floating in waters in eastern New Providence. Plus, if you're not accountable to the people, then it's time to resign. That's the sentiment of opposition leader Michael Pintard as it relates to one sitting MP. We'll tell you whose resignation he's calling for straight ahead. And then it was a celebration of canines and their community impact. Our Danielle Miller stopped by the second King of the Ring dog show this morning to learn all about responsible pet ownership. These stories and so much more as Our News Weekend starts now. This is Our News Weekend. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm Megan Shepard. A tragic early morning traffic fatality claiming the life of a young woman. According to police officials, they believe the incident may have occurred in the early morning hours, around 2 a.m. But it wasn't until 6:30 a.m. when police control room received a call about a black Honda Fit in waters just east of the Prince Charles and Yamacraw intersection.
Officers would have discovered the body of a female floating in the waters along with a black Honda type vehicle. EMS was contacted, and on arrival of the scene they also discovered that this body was lifeless. Our information at this time, at about around 2 a.m., this vehicle was traveling east on Prince Charles, and when it came to the intersection of Yamacraw Road, it just traversed straight into the water. At this time, you have no motive, no reason as to why.
While Superintendent Karan Jennings could not confirm the identity of the victim, he did share this bit of information.
This time the female she appears to be in her early 20s, and she suffered upper extremity injuries that caused her demise. The vehicle is extremely damaged. As you know, it went into the waters, so it is completely damaged.
Member of Parliament for St. Anne's, Adrian White, also on scene to offer condolences. He says, unfortunately, not only is this not the first time an accident of this nature has occurred at this intersection, it is not the first time for the year.
Earlier this year, there was a police chase that ended on the same section, eastern end of Prince Charles Drive, right here in Culbert's Bay, also known as Yamacraw Bay, where a number of pedestrians walk early in the morning. That chase ended with the vehicle going into the water, which is what happened this morning with the vehicle driven by the young woman, who I found out moments ago that she's a mother of 2 young daughters, so it's very tragic.
Both men say it is time to implement more safety measures in this area. The plan now is to engage the Ministry of Works.
We would like to put out to the public that when traversing in this area, you need to have caution and pay attention, as this area is poorly lit. The police will then have a conversation with Ministry of Works to have this problem rectified.
And so what we're going to have to do is insist that Ministry of Works takes measures to erect some sort of barricade to assist vehicles or prevent vehicles from entering the water again. And at the end of this intersection, there's a street light, but as you come further across the asphalt, there are no further street lights.
Meantime, opposition leader Michael Pintard firing back at Progressive Liberal Party chairman and Member of Parliament Fred Mitchell over his recent remarks. Those remarks? Well, earlier this week, Mitchell, in a voice note, suggested that answering questions isn't always worth the trouble. Mitchell's comments came amid public backlash over the government's decision to rehire nearly 500 retirees. In response, Pintard says it's time for the Fox Hill MP to step away from politics and retire.
When you get to a point where you feel you don't need to answer the Bahamian people's question, the moment you've arrived at that point, you should look in the mirror and realize, I've moved from being a serious activist to a very undemocratic national leader, and I should move on, where he could just speak his mind with no reference to what is considered good governance. Good governance demands that all of us answer questions relative to how we are managing the affairs of the country in general and the finances of the people in particular.
Pintard says Mitchell's comments were disappointing but not surprising.
Fred Mitchell shut down an entire debate because we were talking about relevant matters in Parliament about national life. He shut down the debate. He said, we're not here to discuss that. I don't think it's relevant. And if you continue, I'll call the question. And he went ahead and did so and shut down an entire debate. At this stage in his life, he has reached a point where he does not feel accountable to the Bahamian people.
The business community says for now they're still against a possible minimum wage increase. Although government increased it by $50 2 years ago, residents are calling for it to be higher amidst inflation and the high cost of living. Our Joshua Williams spoke with the CEO of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, who says if it's done, it has to be carried out in tandem with the business community.
Bahamas Chamber of Commerce President Dr. Leah Roll says discussions are continuing with government on a proposed minimum wage increase. Residents around the country are still calling for an increase, even after the Davis administration increased the minimum wage from $210 to $260 in January 2023. That was the second increase since the Ingram administration introduced the minimum wage in 2001 at $150 per week. However, Roll says they have been and are still against any added increase to the business community.
Because of so many ancillary costs that the business community has already had to endure, they have had an increase in NIB, and of course NIB is looking at another increase soon. They've had an increase in the cost of procurement of goods and services. They've had an increase in minimum wage already about a year or two ago. They've also had an increase in shipping and logistics costs.
He says while it may be hard for residents to understand, a possible minimum wage can also have a negative impact.
So when you look at the business community and they are still surviving on that same $1 that they've always had, but now you're pulling more from it, what that will cause is inflation, which is a systematic increase of goods and services, cost of goods and services. And so what we're saying is any further increase in minimum wage has to be done in tandem with impact reports to understand how the last increase, as well as all of the increases in the other ancillary costs that I mentioned, are impacting the business community. So at present, as I said, they're looking, of course, because ILO conventions say that we have to move towards livable wages and making sure that people's salary is in line with inflation and the cost of living. But that has to also be done in tandem with the business community and understanding that if these businesses close down, there will be no jobs in any event.
With cost of living and various taxes on their backs, residents continue to struggle with making ends meet, wage increase or not. When asked if his viewpoint and that of the business community could be seen as a possible roadblock to an increased wage.
So the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation is the employer's arm. And so everything that we speak to is business related. And while constituents of these other organizations will be advocated for by those organizations, our advocacy is for the business community. And so everything we do unapologetically is towards the business community.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Thanks so much for that, Josh. The Immigration Department bringing their services to the community Friday with its Immigration Connect City pop-up. The department took over Christie Park with stalls, bringing every unit within the organization to ensure immigration compliance is as seamless as possible. Acting Director Rudolph Ferguson says one aspect of the pop-up is to deliver quality service.
It represents a reinvention of how we want to engage you, our stakeholders, not only to come, but also to educate. We want you to know how to apply for an application.
The pop-up also served as an opportunity to apply to be a part of the Immigration Department. Immigration Minister Alfred Sayers says the pop-up is one step towards the ministry changing the stigma attached to the Immigration Department.
The Immigration Connect City pop-up is more than just an event. It is a promise made and a promise kept. An obligation to transparency, efficiency, and accessibility through initiatives such as this one. We are bringing our services directly to you.
All right, well, retired pastor and a crime advocate Bishop Simeon Hall once again calling on government to continue its work on medicinal cannabis. The project seemingly losing a bit of steam after government passed a compendium of bills in the Senate last July. Those bills sought to create a controlled system for cannabis use for medical and religious purposes. Bishop Hall has served on a number of boards relative to the subject, including the CARICOM Marijuana Commission. He says as technology advances and education and awareness increases, now is the time for Bahamians to change their way of thinking.
Churches in the country use alcohol when they serve the sacrament, and that's what the brothers in the Rastafarian camp are saying. You all use alcohol for your sacrament, and we use marijuana for ours. I don't believe either one. All I'm saying is that we've got to protect some people's rights. And the biggest thing with our marijuana panel, on which I served for several years, is that we were able to get some young men to fix the penalty that they had suffered for having a spiff of marijuana, that he can't go to Miami, he can't go get a job.
Now, Hall has faced criticism over the years for his stance on cannabis. In his opinion, there's another evil that the public should be more focused on.
I always find it interesting that we as a country get down on the fellow with the marijuana, but we got how many bar rooms in this country, right around the corner, that and liquor, and this is not to pardon marijuana or promote marijuana. More deaths and more accidents, more suicides are done from alcohol than from marijuana. Where's the outcry against alcohol? Alcohol causes more death and disrupts more families than does marijuana.
When Our News Weekend comes back from the break, we take a look at prescription drugs and suicide prevention. A local doctor is weighing in on the conversation of helpful or harmful. We've got those details right after this quick break.
Diet-friendly special.
Tonight, we continue the conversation on suicide prevention. Last week, we introduced you to Dr. Andy Lang, who serves as a volunteer clinical consultant at the Grand Bahama Resilience Center. Dr. Lang shared common risk factors, warning signs, and a number of ways to be supportive of anyone that may be dealing with suicidal thoughts. But what about the role of prescription drugs? Well, Dr. Lang says as long as a person is consistent with their medication, that should reduce their likelihood of attempting suicide. Unfortunately, he adds, there are persons who are living undiagnosed or without the proper prescriptions.
And because of that, it predisposes them to committing suicide. But certainly, once these persons come to the attention of family members, of colleagues, of friends, there are some things that can be done to prevent any subsequent attempts.
And you've probably seen the commercials during your screen time. A prescription drug aims to cure one diagnosis, but has a laundry list of side effects, including the risk of increased suicidal thoughts. He says he finds this very alarming.
And so while the possibility of entertaining or developing suicidal ideations exist, the testers have determined, and I would like to think that their determination is based on evidence, that the benefits of using that drug far outweigh the negative side effects.
Well, still to come on Our News Weekend, our Danielle Miller may or may not have made a few furry friends earlier this morning. If not, she's at least got a recap of the second King of the Ring dog show. We'll tell you all about it, but first,
we talked to a championship-winning soccer coach, and we got some developments in local rugby next on Our Sports Weekend.
Diet-friendly special.
Wake up, it's the first of the month. I'm Tej Adderley with Our Sports Weekend. Anton Justin Seeley Jr. had a storied career as a soccer player in college and for the Bahamas national team. His success is carrying over to the coaching ranks.
I went off to boarding school from QC, played at the soccer academy, St. Stephen's in Austin. From Austin, I went to Chapel Hill on a scholarship, played 2 years, won the national title, then came to UCF, played while doing a different undergrad degree as well, and then doing a master's program, a dual master's program. And then I started coaching while I was doing the master's.
That's Justin Seeley, son of former BFA president Anton Seeley. He was once a standout player for the Bahamas national team, the UNC Tar Heels, and the UCF Knights. His journey through the sport led him from the Bahamas to Lake Nona High School in Orlando, Florida.
I think the athletic director heard of me from coaching in the youth setup, and heard of player development. I have a good track record. I also have an academy in Jacksonville and one in Orlando. That's outside of high school, outside of club, where I develop players, and it does pretty well. And so just from a player development standpoint, I'm trying to do something different for us. They reached out to me over the summer.
The school was looking to develop its soccer program, and Justin did much more than that. He led them to a state championship in the 7A division, the most competitive in Florida, and what was projected to be a rough year for the team.
It's crazy. So we had a school open up within the Lake Nona as well, kind of like 10 minutes away, and so we lost half of the population because they obviously the overflow students, they kind of rezoned them. So it was supposed to be a rebuild year. So it's pretty cool. So we're playing 7A, even though we probably should be 4A, 5A. Went well.
Justin isn't done yet. He plans on dominating Florida high school soccer for years to come. He's also been heavily involved in setting up matches between Florida clubs and national select teams, so he's doing a lot for Soccer Home as well. Congratulations to Justin on his state titles. We're staying out in the field where local rugby will return to action real soon. The Bahamas Rugby Football Union has tentatively announced a slate of matches in March. Dates between local teams are scheduled for March 8th and 22nd at the pitch in Winton, and there are arrangements in the works to play the Grand Bahama Club. In addition, Bahamas Rugby is in the preliminary stages of hosting the Bermuda national team later in the year. Rugby has been steadily rebounding over the past few years following the pandemic. With the work that the Bahamas Rugby Union has put in, 2025 is shaping up to be a big year for the sport. Now, before we go, tonight is a very busy hoops night. Buddy Hield and the Warriors will shoot for 6 straight against Eric Gordon and the 76ers. Klay Thompson and the Mavericks will play the Milwaukee Bucks. And in college, VJ Edgecombe, AJ Storr, Dayton Aubrey, they're all hitting the hardwood. You know where to tune in tomorrow night for the results right here. That's a wrap for sports this evening. For Our Sports Weekend, I'm Tej Adderley.
Thanks so much, Tej. On the other side of this break, meteorologist Greg Thompson steps into the weather center. He's got your weekend check on temperatures for islands across the archipelago. Stick with us.
Diet-friendly special.
Welcome back and thanks for sticking with us. Well, beautiful weather on the outside this Saturday afternoon, but as to what you can expect for the remainder of the weekend, well, meteorologist Greg Thompson fills us in. Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Megan, and a happy Saturday evening, everybody. Beautiful way to start the first day of March. We moved out of February with some nice conditions, and we're continuing that into March. 75 degrees is our current temperature on the outside with a few clouds. Your winds are out of the northeast at 6 miles per hour. Feels like temperature is at 73. Temperatures around the islands right now, it's 71 in Freeport, 72 in Alistown, Bimini. We pick up 73, Marsh Harbor, Abaco, 76, Great Harbor Key. Nichols, San Andros, and Governor's Harbor, pay up 77s there. Central Bahamas, 80 Kemps Bay. We pick up 76s. Arthurstown, Cat Island, Coburn Town, San Salvador, Georgetown, and Deadman's Key, all 78s. And into the southeast Bahamas, 80 in Duncantown, Ragged Island, 78 in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, Delectable Bay. 79s, Abrams Bay and Providenciales, Tricks and Caicos Islands, Matthewtown, Inagua, you rounded our temperature profile with a warm 80 degrees. Sideline radar composite, this is the setup. We have a weak frontal boundary that dropped into the northwest Bahamas early today. It's falling apart. A couple of spotty showers likely along the boundary, as well as some clouds. Most of the activity staying out in the open Atlantic to the east of us. That will continue to sag towards the south. High pressure will briefly build across the area. We're looking for some rather nice boating conditions, but we do expect another front to be getting in here sometime by Monday, Tuesday time frame. That should continue to reinforce the nice conditions we've been having for the last couple of days. Future forecast showing the setup here. Just a few spotty showers along with that weakening frontal boundary. As I mentioned, most of the activity pulling out there in the open Atlantic, and that takes us through Sunday, and then by Sunday into Monday, we do expect another frontal boundary to be getting in here. And of course, as I mentioned, nice conditions expected behind that. Boating forecast for the northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Those winds will fall light and variable ahead of the frontal boundary in the central Bahamas, but they will shift to the northwest to north at 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 2 to 4 feet over open waters. Your high tide is at 8:58 tonight. Your low tide takes place at 3:15 in the morning. For the southeast Bahamas, your winds will be light and variable tonight, but they will be out of the south to southwest at 10 knots tomorrow. Seas running 2 to 3 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In the extended forecast, just lovely conditions across the board. Lots of sunshine, maybe a patchy cloud or two moving in. Of course, temperatures will stay in the upper 70s for the early part of the week. And then we have another front that should be getting in here just before that. And temperatures will be back into the 80s for the end of the week. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
Who let the dogs out? Or rather, who let them in? Dozens of dogs of all breeds, their owners and pet lovers alike from across the island, gathering at the R.M. Bailey Park today for the second King of the Ring Dog Show. Our Danielle Miller was there for all of the fun and informational sessions. Let's take a look.
Dog lovers uniting at the R.M. Bailey Park for the King of the Ring All-Breed Dog Show. Owner of Canine Supplies and event organizer, Jaden Lockhart, tells us what inspired him to host the initiative for a second year.
I have a passion for these dogs. These dogs are like my kids. I love dogs more than I love humans.
No corner of the park was left dogless, which made me question my safety. However, Jody Young, co-founder of the event, assured me that precautionary methods were put in place to avoid any mishap.
Animal control, they make sure your dog is not aggressive or he can't enter at all. So you should have no problem bringing your children. This is a family-friendly event. So there are no aggressive dogs on this ground.
And once your canine was checked and approved, they're allowed within the park. Although the day included a lot of fun, it also included a competition aspect. Titles such as Prettiest Eyes, Best Stacked Pockets, Best Pot Cake, and more were all up for grabs. And not to be left out, there were also a number of prizes up for grabs for the humans and pet owners.
We have lots of giveaways. We have a cruise for two. Yes, on the Carnival Cruise, we're also giving away a 55-inch TV for all the kiddies who did well in school. Highest GPA, we have prizes and laptops and tablets for them. So also an iPhone 15. Yes, lots of choices.
In the end, the motive for this initiative goes far beyond a social on R.M. Bailey Park. Proceeds from the event will be donated to BARC and the Bahamas Humane Society. Reporting for Our News, I'm Danielle Miller.
Thanks so much for that, Danielle. But remember, Hot 91 and Our News are teaming up to get you to this year's Jazz in the Gardens, March 8th and 9th, featuring Lauryn Hill, New Edition, Tony Braxton, Beanie Man, and more. Be sure to listen in to Hot 91 weekdays from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. for the Jazz in the Gardens code phrase. Once you hear it, head over to hot91fm.com or the Music Media 242 app contest page to enter. The winner receives round-trip tickets, hotel and concert tickets for you and a friend. Be sure to look out for the Our News team to tell us all about your experience. It's the Jazz in the Gardens Fly Away promotion. And with that, we thank you so much for joining us for Our News Weekend. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepherd. Have a safe and wonderful evening. Hey guys, Megan Shepherd here. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click that subscribe button if you want to see more content like this. Just click right over here. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so you stay up to date with content like this from the team you already trust.